Now we welcome in the co-founder and CTO of SafetyWing, Sarah Sandness. Sarah, welcome. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here with us and to see you on Running Remote Online.
Yeah, hello, Danny, and hello, everyone that I can't see. It's a pleasure to be here.
Sarah, I know you have a presentation you're going to walk us through, and I think because the last panel was just on diversity in remote work, I'll be interested to talk to you a little bit later about your experiences as a female founder going through Y Combinator and such. So we'll catch up with you after this, after your talk, and I know SafetyWing is just a really popular product that's growing quickly, and we can't wait to hear how you built this company.
Yeah, thanks. Let's catch up after the talk then. As Danny mentioned, I'm a co-founder and CTO of SafetyWing. We launched in 2017 and went through Y Combinator. So I'm going to talk about lessons learned from starting this particular company. With startups, it's never one size fits all. So I'm just going to talk about exactly what has worked for us, and you can pick and choose if there's anything that you think might be useful for you and your company. And then if there's something that sounds like it's not a good fit, then you can do those other things. And a little bit about us. We are building a global social safety net, and that means things like health insurance, disability insurance, pension savings, and income protection. This idea came from, so me and my two co-founders, Sondre and Hans, we're all Norwegian. We all left Norway. We all lost our safety net. And that's when we realized exactly how good the Norwegian social safety net is and how we always used to just take that for granted. That was something we were born with, but it's actually kind of exclusive to whichever country you're born in. But we thought that there's no reason why this shouldn't exist globally. So we're building out that complete product suite and would like to offer it as a membership in the future to anyone in the world. And that was how we started out early in the beginning. We have been remote since day one. So at that point, even though we were three Norwegians, Hans was in Norway, I was in New York, and Sondre was in San Francisco, and we had a front-end engineer. I'm back-end, so we had a front-end engineer in Canada. And we sat down and had decided to build the world's first global social safety net. And the first thing we did was just start on building a community, and while we were working on partnerships with insurance companies, and we eventually somehow landed a partnership with an insurance giant called Tokio Marine, Japanese insurance company, and they believed so much in this idea that we were able to collaborate with them, and we've been going strong since, much thanks to going through Y Combinator in early 2018. If anyone would like if anyone's considering applying to Y Combinator, I really recommend that. Please reach out to me on email or something, and I can help you out with that. They also have something called Startup School which is essentially a lot of the same material, but you can attend that without it's still an application, but it's not that much of a barrier, and you can attend it very much early stage, and you get a mentor who's someone from a Y Combinator startup. It's a really good program, and overall, Y Combinator, a lot of the stuff that I'm going to say is from Y Combinator because it's just one of the best resources and legit places to look for information about how to start and run a startup. So yeah, in particular, Paul Graham's essays have been a big inspiration to both me and my co-founders. So really check that out. So yeah, let's just start with the basics. I'm guessing that people in the audience here are kind of all over the place. Maybe some people are working at a really large startup, or someone's working at a small startup, or someone is dreaming or aspiring or planning to start their own startup. So I'm just going to go through our whole journey, and hopefully there's something for everyone here. when it comes to coming up with what we kind of call idea for a startup, a lot of people are kind of looking for that miraculous thing that's going to change everything, or a quick and easy fix. I want something to just like get it out there and it's going to be super popular, and but that's not really how it works, because this is something you're going to be married to for a long time, or it might even change completely. So it doesn't really, and if it's something that's quick and easy, it's probably quick and easy to copy as well. So the things that I think are the most important things when choosing what to dedicate your time to, is something that you can see yourself working on for a really long time, and you and your co-founders, or the people that you have in mind to be your co-founders. Because this is something, you're going to dedicate your life to this. So if it's something that's more of like an opportunistic, or just like something you just see as an opportunity to grab, but not something you're particularly interested in, that might not be for you. And like I mentioned a little bit earlier, like not every idea is that, wow, that's such a good idea. I mean, if you think about something like Tesla, I'm just going to build really great electric cars, or SpaceX. I mean, just to use some Elon Musk examples, is like, I'm going to build rocket ships to Mars. It's not that the ideas are brilliant and no one had ever thought about it before. It's just that it's really, really hard. And I think we in SafetyWing are seeing a big advantage of having chosen to solve a really, really hard problem, because there are no competitors that are popping up, because it takes 2 years to get to market with an insurance product. The more we build out our product suite, the harder it's going to get to copy. It's just like, it's not an idea, it's just really hard work to build this. And luckily we found a way to do it where we can do it one piece at a time and still make progress, while there are other things like people in the medical industry and stuff that, they can go on 5-10 years without even launching. But in general, if you do succeed, then it will be hard to copy. Another thing when it comes to idea and choosing what you want to do, like the direction you want to be thinking of, is pretty simple. And this is Y Combinator's motto. And it's just make something people want, which kind of sounds a bit easy. And it's not, and the pointer is, don't make something that's nice to have, but make something people want. And you can look for frustrations in your own life, or frustrations in other people's lives, about, is there a product that just there's no current good option for people that are interested in that type of product? Maybe people want a better version of that. That's an example. Very important to make something people want, because that's also how you get customers. So when it comes to getting customers, it's important to launch fast, and not wait for it to be perfect, or hold off or try to build out too many things before you go live. Just make sure you have a compelling enough story and you share it. And like your earliest adopters will be friends and family. And your second wave will be people particularly interested in that area you've chosen to work within. And they are much more dedicated customers, and will be very valuable to give you feedback, which is very important from day one. So it's important to launch fast. Another benefit of launching fast is that you're not supposed to, or it's not necessarily a good idea to launch and then seem like this, tech giant, or like seem like you've been around forever. It's okay to be a little bit scrappy in the beginning, because as humans tend to, support the underdog. And if you are the underdog and seem like the underdog, that can give you a boost in the beginning. Another tip I would like to share with what's worked with us is to hire people who care, as opposed to a resume and the skill set. So at SafetyWing, we have this mission of building a global social safety net and addressing inequality in the world, the whole remote work wave, and and how this is going to change the world is very important for us. And we're seeing that with not just for us founders and our own motivation, but when we hire people in a startup, sometimes things get tough or really, really intense. It's really good to have something that feels like you're working on something worthwhile. If not, then people aren't going to survive the tough times. And they will also step up if they feel like what they're working on is important. They will step up and take more responsibility. As I mentioned, with getting customers, is not that important to get as many as possible in the beginning. It's better to get 100 customers that love your product than 10,000 people that know of your product and think it's like, yeah, it's fine. Because you also rely on those users to get their feedback. Very important to talk to them. Here at SafetyWing, we do. What we have done is we set up so that every week one team member has one interview with a randomly selected customer, like typically on some criteria. Sometimes it's like signed up within the last month, or sometimes it's like been a member for more than 6 months. And then every Monday meeting, which I'll come back to the meetings that we do at SafetyWing that we have prioritized. Every Monday meeting, we go through the results of the customer interview and share that with everyone. This way, we really stay in touch with our users, which is, it can be really dangerous to lose that. And in particular, important that the founders are like, this isn't something you outsource. It's important that the founders are also part of these conversations. And what you're aiming for with your product is product market fit. So in the early stages, and this is why many is not that important at this stage, once people start getting passionate enough about your product that they tell your friends about it, that's when you start having an indication that you do have product market fit. You're not expected to launch with product market fit. You're supposed to talk to users, iterate until you have it. Some notes on growth and how our thoughts have been around that and what's worked for us. So when you implement a channel for growth, we've had success with always focusing on something that grows as a function of itself. So that means when you invest in it, it grows exponentially. So if it grows, so does the output. This is in particular, the most important one is making a great product so that people tell their friends, and then you can incentivize that with referrals. And another one is affiliate, because when affiliate spreads it to their audience, or so-called influencer marketing. So when they spread it to their audience, and the audience sees it, and maybe some of them are affiliates, it spreads as a function of themselves. And the opposite of that would be to do ads, which is tempting because it's so easy. But with those two other channels that I mentioned, and I can add content marketing to that, because that's similar to product development. You just make something shareable and great, then you get attention. But with ads, it seems easy, but all of those others that I mentioned have no upfront cost other than the investment you're making into creating the program, like engineering resources. But ads is just an unlimited money suck that you can invest in. You can always get customers through ads unless you make the sign-up process impossible. Just because with a high number of exposure, people will check out your product. I don't recommend that at an early stage, because it can give you artificial numbers. And what you want is to hit that point where you have product market fit and you know that people think it's so great that they tell their friends about it. And then a third way that's worked for us is through partnerships. Have people on your team that are dedicated to working on partnerships, and then you get the situation where you can figure out specific things that works and integrate people that are in your space, especially if you're early stage and you're able to make friends with someone who's has been a player in your space for a while. That's just a really good. That's just a really good way to get associated with what you want to get associated with. So branding, maybe you've noticed the SafetyWing birds that we have everywhere, which has been pretty intentional from the beginning. So, and this is a very subjective opinion, but I think it's worked so well for us that I wanted to share it. And I think it's important or good to think that branding is not just for users. Like a lot of people will think a lot about what the target market is and try to optimize for that. And in particular, try to copy someone in the same space or competitors because you think that that will, make you associated with this space. But for us at SafetyWing, it's been really important that our branding has become a home to us. And how this has turned out is that we've kind of created a world that we like we think our branding is fun. It's based on being nomadic and free like birds. That's kind of where it comes from. Like we chose the illustration in particular, but this can 100% be done with photos as well. And really integrate this also in internal materials. To give an example of one thing that we've done that has been super fun and that I love is that we've everyone who joins SafetyWing full-time on our core team gets a bird caricature. You get to choose your favorite bird, and then you get a caricature version of yourself that we use in all our internal media or all our internal communication and even some external communication. I'm the pink flamingo, like center, right? This has been a great fun. And so creating through branding, not just think about target market and outwards, because especially as a remote company, anything that can bind you together, and branding can be one of those things. So create the world you like. So this is, now we're getting into the remote company specific things. And, I'm sure most of you have already listened to tons of hours of communication with remote teams, within remote teams. And here is what has worked for us. Not everyone subscribes to this model, but we have since day one worked with overlapping hours. Like in the beginning, we overlapped at least 4 hours a day. At this point, we aim to overlap 2 hours a day. We stretch from California to Finland, so it does put a constraint on where you can hire people from. So we have kind of the Americas and Europe. I spent a month in Vietnam earlier this year, and then my working hours became 11 p.m. till 5 a.m. So, you're free to do so, but there are some sacrifices. But we do have a lot of freelancers that work with us as well. They're not part of the core team that do have the overlapping hours. We're about 15 people that have overlap. We are 15 people that have overlapping hours. It's worked for us because overlapping hours has worked for us to create cohesiveness, culture, and I'll talk a little bit about the different meetings that we set up within the core hours. That's also the time where you can typically set up meetings. Time zones are a challenge, but with the overlapping hours, it's already set when you're expected to be available, that helps. And it's doable even with a 10-hour time difference. It's just like a little bit late for some and a little bit early for someone like me, where I usually start at 8 a.m. When I'm in San Francisco. New York is the best place. I get to start at 11 a.m. Another really important thing with communication that a lot of regular teams will do this, but for a remote startup, it's particularly crucial, is to have regular one-on-ones. I think there are multiple things about this. So I manage quite a few people, and with remote work, one of the benefits is that you have no one hovering over you or controlling what you're doing. And so you want to keep that, but you also want to make sure that people are on the right track and are doing things that we are prioritizing within the company and are focusing on those things. And also that people are happy and working on things that they like. And one-on-ones, I have them bi-weekly with every team member that I manage. And it's worked. The moment I implemented that was when I became a manager, essentially. I cannot, if you don't have regular one-on-ones and you manage a team, especially with the people that you manage directly, 100% do that. This is so as an extension of how we communicate and with the overlapping hours. We use something called Sokoko. I know there are a few others. Tandem is really catching ground, and I mean right now we're talking in Zoom, which is more of only a video conferencing tool. We've really enjoyed this, even though sometimes it can be a bit laggy with the tech. It just really gives this feeling of being somewhere and seeing the other people that are at work during the overlapping hours. So that's just a little tool tip if anyone's looking for a good communication tool. Of course, we use other things like Slack and Notion and Google Docs, but this one's a little bit more unknown. So yeah, to get a little bit into the meetings that we set aside time for, because you don't want too many of them, but you do want to have enough to have your team feel cohesive. I don't know if anyone here watches Seinfeld. That's where we have this word Festivus from, Festivus for the rest of us. So in Seinfeld, it's a holiday, essentially instead of Christmas, where you dance around a iron pole, and instead of giving gifts, you air your grievances. So it's kind of a sad holiday in Seinfeld, but for us, it's been a huge asset. So how we do this is that we hire a coach, as someone who's a successful coach and has worked with a lot of startups. Please, if you're interested, please reach out to me, and I can recommend him. He's based out of Germany right now. Then we go through and we say some like three good things and up to 3 bad things about how things are going. So I mean, it's kind of like a, what do you call it? A compliment sandwich, where the real goal here is to hear what's not going so well, and to, instead of letting it fester, to get that at the root. So we do this with the whole core team of 15 people once every quarter. So we sit down, go through it, and then talk through it. Sometimes it's very smooth and sometimes it's a little bit less smooth, but it's extremely necessary to not let things fester. It's only a 2-hour session. And sometimes we do different things, a little presentation, and split up into groups and talk about particular topics that are going on. And in this forum, we get to hear what's going on. And particularly for us as founders, we hear the bad things that are going on, and then we move on to fix it. And we talk and we change things until we have a solution. And then there are some things that are going to be eternal problems, just because on the team, people will have different preferences. Something that is an eternal problem is some people always want fewer meetings, while other people want more communication. So it's just about finding the middle ground between those things that can never be solved, and where there are people on both sides of the fence. But yeah, Festivus for the rest of us. I really recommend that. We do it quarterly, only a couple of hours each time. It's really great, and gets out the bad stuff before things fester, which might be harder to see in a remote company. Like in an office setting, you would have maybe you can pick up on things more than you can in a remote company. So talk a little bit about how we keep our direction. We have multiple meetings surrounding goals. Most frequent one is we do a weekly goal update of things we did last week, things we plan to do this week. So I'm sure a lot of a lot of people here are used to that kind of thing. And then we also do quarterly goals. So we set up once a month a time to go through how we're doing with them. And they are based on yearly and beyond goals, which we go through once a quarter. So long-term planning. It's just really important to have a good structure. Like it doesn't have to be weekly, quarterly, yearly, and beyond. But having a good structure for setting goals and making sure you're on track. And then if you iterate, like some startups pivot, just update your goals, but always have this direction, always have this place that when people start, curious about what to prioritize next, there's somewhere to look for it. And yeah, we organize this in Google Docs and Notion. It works for us. I recommend this as a way to do it, and put names on responsibilities. That's another important thing about the goals. Is it's not just about who's implementing it. It's also about who should do it. Yeah, I'm running out of time here, so I'm gonna go through my remaining slides pretty fast. Another meeting that we do is something that we learned about during Y Combinator, which is meetings to innovate. And again, you have to, as a remote company, you have to confine things. A lot of ideas kind of float more freely, or in an office setting. But how we do these meetings is that we split our whole team of 15 into smaller groups. We just spew out all the ideas, either on a topic or what can we implement in a year, or within, how can we grow this product? After we've spewed out all the ideas, we rate all the ideas on 2 factors, complexity and impact. And then we calculate a score based on that, and then we sort that. And then we see what we should put into our goal list. It's that simple. It's worked really well for us. Pretty much everything we're doing and have chosen to do is because of a result of one of these meetings that we do quite often. Team gatherings is an important thing as a remote team. I'm sure you've heard about multiple ways to do that. So we've done quite a few at this point, like more than 10. And so just a little bit about what's worked for us and what's not worked. Obviously, it's important for culture. So how to program them, that's kind of where we've had a little bit of a trial and error. Like we've had too much programming and we've had too little programming. So it's been like we found that the golden ratio here, or what works best, is about we do a team gathering for about 1 week, 4 hours a day with work together. We are doing 2 evenings or afternoons where we do dinners or something together, and 1 day off, and the rest is free time. So 4 hours a day, 1 day off, and the rest is you can work solo work, and we do it for 1 week. That seems to be what works the best for us in terms of not wearing people out. Yeah, and keeping it interesting. Another thing is to offer your employees benefits. So I think we're going to start seeing a shift where and talent is highly valuable, even with remote employees where it's hard to find a job. Very important to have to offer good things to your employees. We at SafetyWing obviously have health insurance because it's one of the things that we actually sell outward to customers. So we are our own customers. That's also what we use as health insurance. And it works for remote teams. So I recommend that. I'll give you a little offer at the end. Another thing that's not there yet, but that we are working on, is pension. Hopefully in the future, you have the same rights as a remote worker as you do any other worker. One final tip here is building internal tools. Just build a version 1 and get it out there. For a remote team, having something to gather around and share and look at. Here's some screenshots of what it looks like for us. You can just build a very basic version and then keep building on it. So it's a long journey to run a company. You pick up a lot of things along the way. The best you can do is just listen to others, apply what you think is useful. And we have a special offer for running remote participants. So the health insurance that I mentioned, which is available for both teams and workers. If you sign up by June 30th, you get 10% off for life on this insurance. I'll get you the link afterwards. That was it from me. Thank you.
Awesome, Sarah. Thank you so much. If there was an audience, they'd be applauding right now. There is. They're just applauding virtually. A super informative presentation, and what I really appreciate is you let us see sort of the full spectrum related to how your business runs, right? And being a relatively new business, but yet having gone through YC, I mean, that's one of my questions that probably is going to be vastly different for the next YC class, right? Is how many of the next round of YC's batch, how many in the next batch of YC companies will be fully remote versus how many were then? It was probably like you and one other or something like that maximum, right? How many companies in your batch were remote companies?
So also YC is usually, for most companies, fairly early stage. They're usually just like the founders, which is typically 1 to 3 and like 1 or 2 other people. So at that point, there weren't that many. Then that's usually, whoever's around you. So we were, a lot of companies have made the decision to become remote since.
Cool.
But at that point, yeah, most people were not remote.
Yeah, fascinating. I'm going to get into the questions here. From Chris Hewer, are there any groups or communities in which you participate for remote founders specifically? Where do you gather your information and your networking as a remote founder?
So we do belong to one group which is specific, and one of the other reasons why I can recommend Y Combinator so much, and I'm willing to give advice if anyone has a startup and wants to apply. We're part of a remote YC companies group, and we sometimes have dinners. I mean, so for a lot of these people, a lot of these founders will be based in San Francisco, while the others are around the world. So that's one group where we gather and talk to each other. Also, I mean, we've been to running remote before, and we attend various conferences around the space, and we've also hosted our own events on topics within remote work. In particular, hosting events is one of the things that I would say I have really gathered us, because then you make research, like who has something to say in this space, and then you meet them and you get to have conversations with them, and maybe they become your friends. So yeah, we have a group for remote YC companies. So if anyone here is a YC company and would like to be a part of that group, otherwise, super. As I mentioned, host events.
Awesome. And your advice isn't just find a community, but create a community, which I really appreciated. From Gonzalo Hall, what was your strategy to grow your affiliate base and convince people to promote you? We're talking a little bit about virality and how you ensure that that your customers are speaking to their friends and their contacts, and how have you guys been able to build that out?
So first of all, we started with our friends. Actually, one of the most successful blog posts that we have ever had is one of our friends who ran a Nomad community, which was of medium size then, and a smaller size. Like now it's a fairly big community, but it used to be a smaller community. So I would say, obviously you can't get the biggest affiliates right when you're starting out. But smaller affiliates still have an audience and they can potentially grow. So look in your existing circles, people or friends of friends. They can also be an excellent source of feedback. So if you're early stage with your product, they might say, "Oh, I like you a lot, so I would love to recommend your product, but there are these things that I would like you to have a look at before I recommend it." That's another strategy. And then once you're later on, what we do is that we hire people who have a network of affiliates, and they work on reaching out and talking to and presenting our product, are trained in learning about our product and presenting that to others. So that's on the scaling stage. In the early stage, it's make it personal and don't worry about the affiliate being huge or not.
Yeah, and rely on your network specifically. It
Yeah.
sounds like that was a lot of what you were saying
Mm-hmm.
as well. Probably our last question. Christy Wells says, when building your team, how do you determine that the remote team members will be a cultural fit? That's an interesting one, Sarah.
Yeah. So for us, there's a lot of multiple things. One of the biggest one is we have this mission that we're working on, which is to build the world's first global social safety net. So for us, it's mission alignment. You know, are they looking for another spot on their resume? Like, oh yeah, I want to work at a YC Silicon Valley startup. Oh, and it's remote. That's great. Or are they? I'm so passionate about this problem. I want to solve this. I'm particularly interested in this section of it. That's been the most thing, because like we're so driven by our mission that kind of constitutes a cultural match. Then also, I mean, we do extend. We have a set how we do. We have a routine of how we do our interviews. We usually have founders do one of the earlier interviews to weed out the ones that are not a cultural fit, or an obvious not the cultural fit, do a lot of interviews is one of the things I would say. You start to get to recognize the patterns. Like sometimes it's just like you just click with someone. That's a good sign that it is a good cultural fit. It's definitely possible. I mean, when you're doing an interview remotely over video, you get to kind of get an idea of what it's like working with them remotely. So it is the right way to interview someone.
Awesome, Sarah. We really appreciate it. It's a Festivus miracle, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah, we completely made that up. And it's
you have like the bagels and everything too, and do you have the poll? Like, how does that all work?
No poll. It's pretty much just the grievances, yeah, and a little bit
of
happy chat. But yeah, no, that I can wholeheartedly recommend that. It's been a really great thing that we've implemented.
Yeah, that was just a really unique and creative insight. Sarah Sandnes, the CTO and co-founder of SafetyWing. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us here on Running Remote Online.